Is honestly not just a dream come true, but is the dream come true. Like, this was it. I said it on stage. This was the goal that I had in mind for 30 years. I've been in love with the movies since 5 years old, when my mother introduced them to me by going to the local library and somewhere in central Jersey. And they were showing clips from the Universal monster films from the 30s. So basically, Dracula rising from the grave, the mummy getting stabbed with that spear, and then the burning windmill sequence at the end of James Whale's 1931 version of Frankenstein. And that hit me. The next morning, I told my mother I want to make movies. Then Star Wars came out the next year, and from that point on, I was that cliche of the kid making Super 8 movies, moving on to VHS films.
Okay, I'm recording.
I was eventually going to film school. I have to get Claire's Knee and the Romer series. I have to get that. I went to NYU wanting to make the next Die Hard, and then this happened, and this led me to French New Wave, and then, then I got into Italian neorealism and British social realism, and then eventually to Cassavetes. So it was. I feel it was Claire's Knee that really set me down the right path.
We're terrific.
She fucking strips naked. She's like, tie me up. She wants to be tied. She wants to be tied.
Actually shot my first feature, 4-letter words, in '96. We shot that on 35 millimeter. I happened to land a job at a small publishing house right out of NYU, and that allowed me to cut my teeth on some industrials, and one or two happened to be like a slick commercial. So I was able to put money aside, and that's what allowed me to buy the short ends off of 12 Monkeys, the Terry Gilliam film. But then it took me 4 years to figure out the proper way of cutting that film.
Help! There's an old joke. It goes, and I'm paraphrasing.
It was during those 4 years, actually, that Greg the Bunny was established and discovered and sort of fell into my lap.
Hi, I'm Dan Milano. I'm the co-creator, co-EP, and writer on Greg the Bunny. I also play Greg and Warren. And just a brief history of Greg the Bunny. The character was created by Spencer Shenoy, Sean Baker, and myself for public access, and then went on to the Independent Film Channel. And from there, Neil Moritz made a deal with us. And found Stephen Levitan.
Modern Family is about 3 families.
And Steve had a deal with Fox that guaranteed us 13 episodes. And the result was a network sitcom based on our independent short films.
Wait a second.
Something's missing.
I went through a really turbulent time in my late 20s. I was in full active addiction with opioids, specifically heroin. And my life fell apart. I lost my job. I lost my friends. Greg the Bunny. That's the job that I was fired off of. I was starting over. I was 29 and like turning 30, but I knew I didn't want to give up. I loved film. I knew that was my calling. And it was at that time that I had to hustle like never before.
It's called the Avid One Media Composer. I'd like to show you the system right now.
Shifting, you're the 2000 graduate in media studies. And Sean, you have been studying nonlinear editing here.
Yes.
In this nonlinear editor, you can splice in, just like in film. Let's take a look at the result.
Let's go! Okay, I can!
Now that we've completed our program,
I actually was using my first feature. I didn't like the initial cut on.
I find Asians attractive. All right.
We were working on that together, re-editing my first feature together here at the New School. The cut ended up getting us into South by Southwest in the year 2000. 4-letter words. It got me started. It took 4 years. And that was sort of my entry into that world.
me. I'm not in your world. Alex, I don't even like talking to you. Oh.
I'm Sean Baker. I'm one of the co-creators of the film Takeout. This is my second feature film. Takeout is truly an independent film. Cost $3,000 out of our own pocket with a skeleton crew, if you can even call it that. I co-directed a film called Takeout, and that was shot on a mini DV, standard definition mini DV. The Dogma 95 movement had kicked in, and the Dogma 95 movement is a Danish film movement created by Lars von Trier and Thomas Vinterberg.
Thanks to the Academy.
And those films really inspired me. They told me that, look, you can pick up your mini DV camera and you can make a feature and put it out there, and film goers and critics will take it seriously. And that's exactly what we did. Takeout is a film that I co-directed with Shi Ching-zo, and it started to do the festival circuit. It got nominated for a Spirit Award. It helped me move my career along. The reason we made Takeout was because we weren't seeing these sort of stories being told. And I think then Prince was my way of doing it on a slightly bigger budget.
Hey, Sean Baker, the director, the shooter, as you're called, otherwise known as cinematography. The new film Prince of Broadway, it's a New York story about a Ghanaian immigrant who sells counterfeit goods. He's a hustler, and basically he gets saddled with a little 18-month-old baby.
Prince of Broadway got me some festival circuit recognition. Lee Daniels helped us get it out there.
Were you surprised when he was white? You were like, hey, you're white.
A little bit. Look at him, he don't get no whiter.
So now I had Takeout and I had Prince of Broadway. Those two films got nominated for Spirit Awards.
In the same year?
And yes.
Prince of Broadway. Takeout.
Yeah, Takeout was made a couple of years before. It just took forever for it to get exposure. So it made it look to the outside that it was like a 1-2 punch thing. Those two films together got me attention.
Now who's the damsel in distress? Me? Straight up.
Ted Hope came on board and helped me find financing for Starlet.
The film is Harold and Maude meets Boogie Nights meets Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
Yeah.
That was a weird period of time there because I thought that Starlet was going to open all the doors I needed to have opened, and I was in a place where I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen here because I couldn't find the money for a bigger budgeted film.
You started working on this film before Tangerine and then made Tangerine and then were able to make this after. Can you talk a little bit about what happened in that process?
Sure. It was we couldn't find financing for the film. Mark Duplass had told me he was a fan of my film Prince of Broadway, and he said, if you ever want to make a film with me, the door is open.
Merry fucking Christmas.
I remember calling Mark and I said something like, I guess I'm ready to make another micro budget.
Well, I think you have the wrong number.
I can't believe the budget's going to be like a third of what I did Starlet for, but okay, here we go.
My co-screenwriter and I, his name is Chris Bergosh, we knew that the only way to go about doing this was really spending a lot of time in the area and finding a collaborator. I was extremely lucky to find Maya Taylor because she was our passport to that world. Maya introduced us to Kiki. You're hanging out at the local Jack in the Box.
It's the old saying, Jack in the Box, it's a magician, right? No, this is a restaurant here in the United States.
She sat down across the table from us next to Maya, and the second I saw the two of them together, I thought, dynamic duo right there. So we went in there basically just with the idea of we want to tell a story that takes place here in one night, and there's going to be sort of a convergence at the end of the film at donut time. That was basically it. That's all we had. It was Kiki who eventually came up with the woman scorned idea, which became our A-plot. We worked together on the script all the way through post-production. I mean, it was we were writing along the whole way, finding this film.
Well, let's talk about the use of iPhones. Obviously, it was for a budgetary reason and then a stylistic reason.
You're shooting the scene in which Sydney, the character of Sydney, exits donut time and she goes on the credit page. Well, I wanted it to be dynamic. I wanted it to be a shot of adrenaline at that moment. I happened to have my bike there, a 10-speed bike. I held onto the handlebars with my left hand and held onto this Steadicam in my right hand. And when I showed it to everybody, and I said, look, this might be the style of the movie. I think we're finding something here.
As a director, it allowed me to shoot more clandestinely, and it truly, I think, put us in a very casual mood when we were shooting. There was no intimidation factor. I think I was able to capture street life in a different way than my previous films because of this device.
What did you think when he told you that it's gonna be on iPhone? You're like, oh great, here, I thought I was signing on for something real.
You were in Tangerine, which was the summer breakout hit.
For real? Looks like you need a new pack.
It actually led to me being able to find financiers for the newest film, which is the first time I'm working, above $1 million budget.
So tell us about your new project.
It's called the Florida Project.
Fuck you, Bobby! I don't have to listen to you.
Ouch! I want you out of this lobby. I'm gonna count to 3, and if you don't leave this lobby, you're out of here tonight. 1, 2, 3. Ah, nice.
I've always wanted to make a film about children, inspired by the comic shorts of the 20s and 30s called The Little Rascals. It focused on the mischievous adventures of little children, but it was also set against the Great Depression, and also a lot of the characters in The Little Rascals were living in poverty. My co-screenwriter, Chris Brigosh, actually brought this world to my attention. The fact that there were children growing up in budget motels right outside of the place that we consider the happiest place on earth for children. And this was all due to the recession of 2008.
Rock bottom FICO scores.
So it seemed like a sort of a parallel thing going on here, in that we could actually take the Little Rascals model and sort of do an update, have a present-day Little Rascals to a certain degree.
Let's go, come on.
I think it's a rarity that, you get to be a part of good movies, you get to be part of great movies, but I do think that there is something quite special about what he accomplished with this film.
Sean is a great filmmaker, and I think this is, things came together on this. I mean, you don't say you're happy with something, but I mean, I think this movie expresses something in the air and is special.
A little film that's one of the must-see movies of the year. It's called The Florida Project.
The Florida Project.
He wowed the critics here in Cannes in 2017 with The Florida Project.
Film The Florida Project, Lies of Life, in The Florida Project.
Willem Dafoe in The Florida Project.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
This film came about because of COVID. It wasn't supposed to be the film I made as the follow-up to Florida Project.
Excuse me?
I was actually in development on another film up in Vancouver for over 2 years of entrenched development. It's a film about drug user activism in Vancouver, so it's a film, think Milk. So I needed protesters on the street, something that just can't be done during this time. It's gonna have to wait. Willem Dafoe was set up to be the lead, and COVID killed it. The borders closed.
Canada and the United States will temporarily restrict all non-essential travel across the Canada-US border.
This is fucking murdering my ass.
So we were just sitting around our apartment mourning the temporary death of that project. And that's when my producer, Alex Sachs, reached out to me and said, I think I can find you a little bit of money.
We happy? Vincent? We happy? Yeah, we happy.
And so we moved ahead and did it for a quarter of the budget of Florida Project, by the way. That didn't feel good. We were a little tiny. We were, because of COVID, and we had our COVID compliance rules, we had to be a tiny little pod, essentially, not really, kind of isolated. So we had a 10-person crew and like 5 extra cast members. We were like an intimate like family, just with one goal in mind. So it was actually really liberating as an artist. And actually, to tell you the truth, I don't know if I can make that Vancouver film right now because of COVID. So I may want to make another small film like this. I found it very freeing. Thing. My mother introduced me to cinema at 5 years old. Today is also her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. Thank you for everything. And this is for you.